In this video, we will look at vendor mapping options. Shopify products have a vendor field which we can set or use to set ThriftCart values via vendor mapping. If we come to Settings and this Donation Source Vendor Map button here, we have some mapping options. The first one is Donation Source Vendor Mapping. This allows us to set the Shopify vendor to a particular value based on the donation source of our item. For instance, we could set the Shopify vendor to donation if the donation source of the item is donated. This might be useful if we have a collection in Shopify for which having a vendor with a particular name is one of the requirements. So if we take a look in Shopify, we have this collection here, and one of the conditions to belong to this collection is that the vendor field contains the text donation. So we have this item in ThriftCart here that is from the donated donation source, and if we export it to Shopify, and take a look at it within Shopify, we see it was assigned the vendor donation, and it was also placed in the collection that had having the vendor be donation as a requirement. Note that this donation source vendor mapping is only one way. It's only for items that are exported to Shopify. Items imported from Shopify always have their donation source set to donated. There is also this vendor to vendor map. This is a two-way mapping option. It sets the Shopify vendor based on the ThriftCart contact when exporting, and the ThriftCart contact based on the Shopify vendor when importing. You can make this happen automatically for all vendors by checking this box here. This will cause ThriftCart to set the Shopify vendor to the name of the contact from whom we got the item when exporting. When importing an item with a vendor, ThriftCart will search contacts for one with a matching name, and if it finds one, it will set the item as having been donated by that contact. Let's demonstrate with a couple items. Here we have this item within ThriftCart, and we can see that it was donated by James Garcia. Let's post it to Shopify. And take a look at it from within Shopify. And here we can see that the Shopify vendor has been set to the name of the contact. Now we're looking at a different item within Shopify. This item's vendor is Mary Johnson. Now let's import the item. Let's look at this Shopify listing. If we look at this line here, this line tells us the donation source and vendor. So ThriftCart has both donation source and vendor values. Shopify only has a vendor value, but if we look on this line here, we see that this item was assigned to the contact Mary Johnson within ThriftCart. Something to consider is that vendors in Shopify are just a name. There's no address, phone, email, or any other contact data. So when exporting an item to Shopify, we can just set the vendor to the ThriftCart contact name without worrying about whether we matched it with correct address, phone, etc. However, since ThriftCart vendors do potentially have this data, we want to make sure that we assign the ThriftCart contact correctly in case we have multiple contacts with the same name. That's where this button comes in. Click it, and it will find all Shopify vendors that do not match any ThriftCart names or those that match multiple ones. If there are any issues to resolve, we can click on this to start making manual maps. There is this vendor, John Smith, whose Shopify name matches multiple ThriftCart contacts. We can view contact data for each of these contacts by clicking on these links. Let's say we look through the data and determine that the second John Smith is the correct one. We search in this box here, and then click the correct John Smith. Now we search this box as well, and select John Smith. And with both these inputs filled out, we now click Add. And now we just made a mapping between this Shopify vendor and this ThriftCart vendor to guarantee that John Smith will be assigned to this contact rather than the other one. We can also use this mapping option to resolve the issue of a Shopify vendor that has no ThriftCart matches. We have this unmatched Shopify vendor, Jim Turner. Let's search Turner in ThriftCart contacts, and nothing shows up. If nothing shows up here, we can click on this. So the list of these things here only includes contacts that have actually donated something. So if we're, say, working with a contact that hasn't donated anything yet, we can search here. And we have this James Turner here. Let's look at his info. And we see that this is, in fact, Jim Turner. Now let's add him and match him with Jim Turner. Click Add. And we can do other things with this mapping here as well, like if we want to block the automatic mapping of a particular vendor, like say, we have this vendor, Robert Davis, that does match a ThriftCart contact, but let's say we didn't want to map this to any contact. We could click this here and then leave this field blank and click Add. So now whenever we have a Shopify vendor whose name is Robert Davis, that will not get mapped to any ThriftCart contact at all. And we can do the same thing in reverse. So we could add a ThriftCart contact, Mary Johnson, and go ahead and click Add. And so now when we export a item that was donated by Mary Johnson, the Shopify vendor will be left blank. And if we just want to map a select few vendors rather than all vendors generally, we can always uncheck this box here. And now only the mappings that appear down here will actually occur when an item is imported or exported.